Hello and welcome to this week's negotiation nugget. I'm talking about the power of a negotiation culture in driving transformation. Now, when most people are leading and driving transformation projects in enterprise organizations, they don't typically think about how they need to build a negotiation culture to support the delivery of that transformation. In this 10-minute or so segment, I'm just going to talk through 5 key insights around negotiation that will help you understand how it links to building a culture of negotiation within your organization and the value that that can bring in driving transformation outcomes. I'll just put up a slide here and I'll talk you through each of these 5 areas. The first one is building relationships. Now, in a transformation project, and if you're trying to drive significant change, the key criteria for any successful change is having people on board. Now, having people on board requires having relationships built, both internally and with external project providers. Now, when you think about negotiation in itself cannot succeed unless you have a relationship in place, especially if it's a long-term project with trust required and an opportunity to create value together. In a negotiation culture, what you have is an established team of individuals that have been trained and have learned how to apply relationship building skills in terms to get the outcomes that they're seeking. Now, those skills involve building active listening. Now, most of us think we listen well, but too often we're waiting to respond, and we've got this internal dialogue of noise and chatter that takes us away from really being present in the room. But as a skilled and trained negotiation consultant and those that have had experience in negotiating, you start to recognize actually being present in the room and active listening allows you to build deeper levels of empathy and also get stronger in your understanding of the needs and interests of the counterparties that you're negotiating with and building relationships with in order to then drive change. So the first step is recognizing that if you want to drive transformation results in your business, the first thing is about building relationships, and negotiation cultures require people to build relationships, because as I've said, you can't have a successful negotiation outcome unless you have the capability and skills to build the right relationships at the right level, at the depth that is required for the outcomes to be achieved. The second one is about improved communication. Now, as a negotiation environment requires, is the individual and the teams involved in negotiations to really be effective and clear in their communication. Through negotiation skills development and training, you start to understand how you can articulate yourself verbally more clearly, but also read the non-verbal cues that are present in the room. The nuances around communication, what is meant when someone says a particular sentence or a particular word, what is the meaning behind the word, and understanding how to interpret the words that are being communicated, not just take them at face value. As a trained negotiation consultant and also trainer of negotiators in the business world, what you start to recognize is once you've activated that level of awareness and that level of thinking and the understanding and looking for the nuances, it's very difficult to switch that off. And in transformation environments, if you've got a culture of a team operating to negotiation core principles, what you get by default is improved communication. Imagine if all your team in this transformation were trained, skilled negotiators. Their communication skills have to be operating at a level above your average worker in order to get the outcomes that are needed. The third one is around enhanced decision making. Now, in transformation projects, you are looking to make critical decisions, often under time pressure, and you've got to engage people behind those decisions and communicate them effectively. Now, in a negotiation culture and environment, what you're teaching is people to understand their different perspectives that may exist in the room. You're asking them to think about the critical components of what the project requires, and therefore how all those components fit together. That often can involve recognizing that there's differences of perspectives in the room, there's differences of opinions, needs, and requirements from individual stakeholders and teams in the business. As a response to that, having a negotiation culture, you've got a team of people that are already practicing creativity in the way they solve problems. You're already having a team that can manage stress effectively in critical environments where there is high pressure and a high need to perform under time, or other pressures that are influencing the project outcomes. Having a negotiation culture means that effective decision making is enhanced because that critical thinking muscle is applied more effectively. The fourth one is looking at resolving conflicts. Now, having been in many organizations with many projects that are needing to be delivered, it is natural that conflict is going to exist. Now, most people think if I have a negotiation culture, then what I'm actually doing is endorsing a more conflict and challenging environment. And that's actually not true. Skilled negotiators, and if you've created a culture of negotiation in the organization, are actually more effective at having constructive communication when it comes to building relationships and getting outcomes. Their skills in understanding the needs of the other party, their skills in emotional regulation of their own emotions when they're in an uncomfortable environment, or perhaps when they've been challenged, means that they're able to manage their emotions and keep regulated in the room, but also facilitate the regulation of other people's emotions in the room, enabling more constructive conversations to happen, more constructive communication to elicit the real needs and desires of the teams involved, and giving space for each party to have their information, their needs communicated, and collectively an opportunity to air that so constructively solutions are found and creativity is applied to problem solving. The fifth one I want to mention is about creating value. Now, typically when it comes to transformation projects, what you have in mind is your end goal. What are you trying to achieve, and what does success look like? And for those that haven't been endorsed or trained in a negotiation environment and culture, it's easy to get into your own head about what your needs are. What am I trying to achieve? What are my outcomes? What are my measures for success? And how do I get those goals achieved with other parties complying to my needs? Now, in a negotiation culture and environment, what you actually have is a team of individuals that are focused on value creation. That means they are more curious. They're looking for opportunities where value can be created that aren't typically obvious from the start of the conversation. They do this because they've already planned and understood that there are multiple variables that could be at play in driving transformation, and in the project requirements, there's different levers for value that are more meaningful to particular stakeholders than other stakeholders. And in that desire to drive for value, they are more collaborative in their approach, and they look for mutually beneficial opportunities to solve problems, but also to create value. So overall, that the focus is on how do we grow the prize rather than how do we divide and split the prize and have one party feeling like it's lost something and the other party gaining, and actually instead focusing on a more win-win scenario, but not just win-win in a traditional sense of the word, but really looking deeper into how can we create more value than would otherwise be on the table when we embark on this project for transformation. So when you're thinking about a transformation project and you're thinking about negotiation culture, I know negotiation culture isn't the obvious thought that arrives when people engage and embark on leading transformation projects. But I hope in this 10-minute negotiation nugget that you've seen the value of driving for a negotiation culture, bringing people along with key negotiation skills that not only drive commercial value and return on investment, but actually elevate the culture and the performance outcomes within an organization, because communication, building relationships, decision making, and conflict management, and ultimately value creation, are all critical for businesses to succeed. So that's my negotiation nugget and insight for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you've got any topics that you would like me to discuss and share more information about in future negotiation nuggets, please be sure to drop me a direct message and I would be happy to assist. Have a great week ahead. Thanks very much for listening.